What's up, everybody? It's Stephen A. Williams, president and founder of the creditrepairshop.com. And in today's video, we're going to talk about dealing with auto repos, and we're going to also talk about dealing with it from a co-signer point of view. If you co-sign for someone to get a vehicle, and I know that you might want to do it because you want to do them a favor, maybe if you're a female, you're doing it for your boyfriend, or if you're a guy, we want to be manly. We want to be like, hey, we want to show our lady that we're going to get, stand up, be the stand-up guy and, co-sign for that vehicle. And then all of a sudden things might go wrong. Vehicle gets picked up, repossessed, and then everything goes haywire. The debt collector coming after you, or the lawsuits, all types of stuff starts to happen. Before I get into that, though, I want to kind of talk a little bit about how we can get our minds focused in the right direction. Also, when you are going through things, it's only just for a little bit of time, and that there's always going to be brighter days right around the corner. You just can't see them. When I was looking through some of my pictures, like I like to look back. This is a picture of me when I was in the United States Army at the age of 18. And here's the deal. So you see me on this picture here. This is me on this picture here. But when I think back to what was in my mind, what I was thinking about when I took that picture, let me tell you, I was in turmoil because I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. I was actually running from just to where I didn't want to be back home in Dallas, Texas, because there was really nothing there for me. Friends wasn't doing anything. And one of my friends had joined the Army. So I was like, well, I'm going to join the Army. And he had actually planned his joining of the Army. I actually went down there, signed, and they came and picked me up 2 weeks later and took me, took me. But before I went into the military, I was actually homeless. I was living in my car. And I remember when I was like, I'm just going to give up the car. And the night before I left to go to the Army, because I really wasn't getting along with my father at that time. And so I had said, okay, could I just stay at the house that last night, and they're going to come pick me up in the morning. And I remember that day, and I remember giving away my car, and that was like, I really just gave away all of my possessions. Like, I literally did not have anything to come back to in Dallas, like zero, nothing to come back to but family. I gave all of my possessions, books, anything that I had done, I just gave it all away. Even my car, just didn't even take any money for it. It was a Buick Regal, black Buick Regal that I had bought from my uncle. And he had did me a favor by letting me make payments to him. And I didn't finish with the payments. So years later, I was like, Unc, when we were playing golf, I was like, Unc, here's that money that I owed you for the vehicle. Here's the rest of it. He was like, yo, you don't got to get that to me. But I was like, no, here, you did me a favor then, and you looked out for me when I was 18 years old. I'm in a whole way different position now, and I just want to do it. We were out there playing golf. He was like, you ain't got to do this. I was like, I know I don't have to do it, but I want to do it. And you and your family, whatever you want to do, take care of it. But that's what uncles are for. And that's what, in a way, what I'm here for you right now is that when you don't feel that there's options, when you have that cloud in your mind where you're just thinking like, man, all of this stuff is just hitting me. What am I going to do? And I'm here to tell you that you don't run. Even though I ran and got into the military and situations changed and I was able to better myself, number one, with discipline and all that stuff. But I would say that even if I didn't join the military and I just did what I'm about to tell you right now, it would have worked for me even then. Is that you do not have to run from anything. All you have to do is confront it. When you confront it, there's two things that you could do. Well, one thing that you could do, because I don't want to make it overwhelming. There's one thing that you could do that can help you when you confront the situation is to just understand what's the worst that can happen and then work your way backwards. Once you understand what the worst that can happen with that specific situation, then it puts you into the position of being creative to get to work yourself out of that situation. And there's always going to be several doors. I call them doors that will open, solutions that will open to help you get out of those problems. So now, with repossessions, when a vehicle is repossessed, either the original creditor comes to take the vehicle back, or in some situations, a debt collector has actually purchased the debt, and then they're going to try to collect on it, and then they're going to come and take the vehicle. So let's look at the situation that could happen. And I've seen this happen a lot with people that have co-signed. So just most people understand what co-signing is, but let me just tell you. Co-signing is where, say for instance, you have a friend or family member, they're trying to get a vehicle, and they go there to try to get approved. Their credit isn't strong enough, and they'll say, well, can you have someone co-sign? Co-signing it's like a setup. Co-sign, most people go into co-signing think that they're just like co-signing for the individual. Like, you could use my credit so they could get it, help them out. But it's actually a lot deeper than that. Co-signing, and they do disclose it, but they need to make it clearer. When you co-sign for someone, you are taking what's called the first spot, the first position. So when you co-sign, most people think that they're co-signing two people and they're like, it's like even. It's like their payment, their credit, your credit, and you don't have to make any payments. They're responsible for the payment. It's actually the opposite. They're going to make the payment, but you're considered the first on there because the deal would not go through without your credit. Understand that. The deal would not go through without your credit. No matter how much money they brought to the table, this deal was not going to go through without your credit because we live in a credit-based society, and they have to justify why they're going to give this individual a loan. Even though the vehicle is the security, they still have to justify giving that individual a loan. The way they justify giving the individual a loan is by the credit. If the credit is not strong enough, they're not going to get a personal loan, even if they had the money. So they call you up and you say, okay, I'll co-sign. You think you're doing the person a favor, but when you co-sign, you're taking the first position. The first position means that if anything goes wrong, yes, they're going to try to go after that individual, but they know that that individual was making the payments and they went wrong. So who do you think they're going to think is the best person to go after? The person who, number one, co-signed because you don't want to ruin your credit. And the person who had strong enough credit that wasn't making the payments is perhaps in the position to make payments. So now you can start to see why it's very dangerous to co-sign for someone. So it is very dangerous to co-sign for someone. Not to say, I say don't do it. But I must admit that my father-in-law, when we were not in the best position, when we were in our 20s, my wife's father-in-law co-signed for us on I think it was on a vehicle. But we made sure we paid that vehicle back in full. We didn't want to do anything to hurt his credit. Nothing. And I thank him for doing that. Since after that, after we built it, like, we made sure you good, and we also paid money to them. I remember we had paid after everything was said and done. We were like, hey, we've saved this money for you, and we want y'all to be able to go. Her mother and father-in-law to be able to go, and I don't know if they had took a trip or something. But we were like, thank you for doing it. And it kind of got us a head start in our position. Now, there's other ways to do it now for your kids than doing the co-sign type deal. There's other ways that you can actually help them out. And I've actually done that for my children without co-signing. but we'll talk about that in another video. So if you co-sign, you're actually taking the first position, even though you're not making those payments. So now, deal goes bad, car gets repossessed, all of a sudden you receive a letter, maybe you even receive a lawsuit where, because when the loan goes bad, it's going to tear up your credit because it's going to show a repo on there, even though it was you co-signing. It's like, I was just co-signing. I was just like co-signing using my credit, but you didn't understand that you were using your credit so they can come back. If they don't pay, they can put it on your credit to make you pay and to put pressure on that person to pay. That's actually what that whole deal, that's what this whole deal was actually about. But we don't know what that whole deal is about until it goes wrong. So now the next thing is, if the deal goes wrong with the repossession, they're coming after you for the money. There's two things. Well, this is what you need to go through. And this here works. This here works, especially if it's went through a third-party debt collector. You could potentially not have to pay any of that back. Not to say that you should be running from debt, but if they don't follow the process, no pay. And you can beat them in court. We've got several clients that have actually beat them in court for like thousands of dollars. So if this is what you need to get, regardless if it's a third-party debt collector or the original creditor, is you want to get that original contract, and you want to get it from the finance company, and you want to get the one from the dealer. Reason why you want to know that is because the dealers in Santander multi-state settlement, in American Credit Acceptance settlement, they had showed that the finance company had received a different contract than what the dealer had the individual sign. And inside of those contracts, they were lying about the income. They were signing for people where they didn't sign. They were saying the trade-ins, all type of lies were in there. And just so they could get the deal to go through. So you want to make sure that the contracts match, that there's no issues with that. The next thing, which is something that I had saw on a potential client yesterday, was that the interest rate was not an approved interest rate for the state that they live in. There are usury laws, and you should look, because I'm surprised all the time when I see this, but companies will try to get away with charging excessive interest rates. You can look it up online. You can probably find news reports where companies, reputable companies, have gotten caught charging too much interest on the loans that they made for automobiles. The next thing is you want to look for credit insurance. Credit insurance could have paid a number of payments, because that can make your balance go down on the vehicle, or it could have paid the whole entire vehicle off, especially when these subprime lending companies that are out there, they know that the majority of those loans are not going to go through. So what these companies do, they package those up and they sell these things as securities. And what they'll do is they'll get credit insurance to kind of make sure that they have like a little bit of buffer on those, so they could like package it up and sell it to some investment firm, and they'll say, hey, it has insurance also added, so it makes the package to them look a little bit better. They can say, well, hey, if a number of these loans go bad, a number of these loans have credit insurance, so you're going to make a certain amount of money. We've heard all of the stories with that stuff. I'm not going to go into detail about that. What I want you to watch out for is the credit insurance, because if they have that on there, they could have potentially got a portion of the vehicle, certain payments made to them. You just never know. You want to question it. You want to get that agreement. They sometimes have people sign that, and people think that it's in their benefit, but it's actually in the benefit of the dealership. But it can work in your favor in the end, but you're going to be paying out on that. And then another thing that you want to watch out for, and I had said this earlier, is the signatures. Make sure that those signatures are matching here, because they are with Santander, their word. So this is not allegedly, and American Credit Acceptance, this is not allegedly, this is wrote into the CFPB multi-state settlement that they had with them, is that there were people inside of the dealership signing for people. And then there was some paperwork that was sent that never had signatures on them. I don't know how that got through, but that got through. And then you want to just overall check the accuracy. Look at your trade-in if you had a trade-in, your down payment. Make sure all the numbers add up right. You know how it is when we're in there and we get in that car. We done test drove that vehicle that we want, and the last thing we want to do is to really go through the numbers. You know, if you get my monthly payment right, we good. You know, that's how people will look at that stuff. So that's how we all look at it. So I don't want to take myself out of it, but we got to get used to looking at the details. Look at the details and you have less problems moving forward in the future. So check that accuracy. Now, they picked up the vehicle. What you want to do is you want to look at that auction statement. Every time I make a video about repos, I always think about the, I can't remember her name, but she was a senior elderly lady that was one of my first clients, had walked into my office at the credit repair shop when we were at our small office. And she walked in and she was saying, my husband died. He had bought this Cadillac, you know, and he shouldn't have bought it, but he was dying of cancer, but he wanted to have a Cadillac. He bought it. She wanted to let him get what he wanted to get. But when he died, she gave the vehicle back and they were coming after her for money. And I was like, did you get an auction statement? They're coming after you for thousands of dollars. Did you get the auction statement? She was like, I don't even know. What do you mean by auction statement? I thought they just put it back up for sale at the dealership. I was like, no. What they'll usually do is they'll sell that vehicle at an auction, and then they will come after you for what's called a deficiency balance. Some of the times, credit unions, some of those places will actually resell the vehicle. And so what we do is we say, give us that auction statement, because with the auction statement, that's the legal process for seeing what you would actually owe. And at that time, this was back around 2006, vehicles were going at a premium, like used vehicles. And we're actually seeing that now in 2023. You see advertisements out there all the time. My wife gets a letter every month from a dealer that wants to buy her Jeep, her electric Jeep. They're like, hey, we will give you the top dollar. And she doesn't want to sell it, but they want these used vehicles because they make a lot of money when they resell these used vehicles. So you want to make sure on that auction statement, and we got that auction statement, and guess what it had on there? It sold for way more than what they were coming after her for with the money. I believe that in the end, it was only a few $1,000s that she had to we ended up settling on, because she was just like, I don't want to run from this. I want to pay my debts, even though it was my husband's debts. And she was a security guard. She was just doing stuff just to, you know, just to get by. She had Social Security. She had some income from what he had left. And she was just like, I don't want to run from this, but I need somebody to help me work through this. And we worked through it, a few $1,000s set up on a monthly payment. And the company was good. They were like, we're going to take care of her. And I was like, you better take care of her. And I said, you just make those payments directly and it'll be done. We got the paperwork saying this is the payment, how many, don't miss any, you're good to go, you can move forward. And that's what we did. But we've actually also seen vehicles that were sold for more than what was owed, and they had to give a check to that individual. Yes, that can happen. Yes, that can happen. I have a vehicle, it's paid off, but I have a Range Rover autobiography, and I was looking at the year of what those are selling for right now. And if they're selling the vehicle that I have right now for the year of that autobiography, they're selling that vehicle anywhere between, depending on the how clean the vehicle is, and no accidents and stuff like that, anywhere between $75,000 to $80,000 still for that vehicle. And this is crazy. This vehicle is 2016, and they're still like, I've seen some 65 all the way to $80,000. They're still selling those. So if someone had one of those vehicles and they had it repossessed, they're actually able to sell that vehicle probably for what someone would owe for that vehicle if they had bought it like in 2018 or 2019. So you gotta get that auction statement. They must get that. Also, by having all of this information, if they decide to take you to court, what have you just prepared for yourself? You have your affirmative defense, because if you see problems with the interest rate, see problems with the contract, you see problems with the credit insurance, you see problems with the accuracy, problems with signature, problems with the auction statement, do you think that in your if you write your response to the court summons that they're going to be like, just keep going after them? No, they're not. You've just done your homework and you put yourself in a very good situation to work your way out of that situation. Now, worst case scenario, like what we started the video with, is that you would end up saying, okay, I want to make a settlement on that amount. And this is an option that you have that a lot of people don't understand. Remember, it is co-signing. It is co-signing. What you can actually do is you can tell them, okay, I was doing this a favor for someone. Let's say that it's $20,000 is what's owed. You send that to the co-signer. I'll settle 10,000 and 10,000. And then I want to make a settlement. I want to make a settlement on this 10,000 that I owe. I would like to settle that for maybe 3,000 or 2,000 or 3,000, whatever you can work out. They may go through some things to justify that. And then they just continue and go after the other individual who you did the favor for the other 10,000. And then you can call them up and say, hey, I already did you a favor once. I'm going to do you one last favor on this because I just worked my way out of this situation. I'm going to tell you exactly how I negotiated so you can just get this done so we can both move on. But you can do that. So even a co-signer situation, you can end up getting with the creditor or the plaintiff attorney for the finance company if they're coming after you, or even with a debt collector if there's no issues and it's proven that you're going to have to pay that debt, that you can say, okay, I want to split it so I can move forward. That co-sign, can we split this down the middle? You go after them for that amount, and then I'd like to work with you on a settlement on my amount. And they will work with you on that. All right, if you need help with your credit, please visit us at thecreditrepairshop.com. Watch the video, what makes us different, so you can see my 8-point validation process, my 2-phase settlement process. If you need your credit reports and scores, go to my website, your3scores.com. Grab your TransUnion, Equifax, Experian credit reports and all 3 scores. Study that. That's going to be one of the ways that you can look at what's going on if you have an automobile repo or anything that's negative on your credit reports. If you have debt collectors coming after you early, grab my 3-pack of letters: statute of limitations, cease and desist collection activities letter, and debt validation letter. I do ask for a donation on those, but those letters can literally save you time, money, and frustration. They really do work. It gets the action going. It helps you confront it rather than trying to do whatever these other people might try to tell you to do. We are confronting the problem, and one way that you can confront the problem is using those 3 letters. Thank you for your time. Please subscribe to the channel, post your questions and comments. This is Stephen A. Williams, President and Founder of the Credit Report.